Hey everyone, this is Jennifer Hartley. I want to thank everyone who came out to our meet and greet sessions this week. If that is you, this video is not really going to contain a lot that you didn't already hear. Of course, feel free to watch it if you want to, but you guys have already heard all this information. If you were not able to make it to the session, either because scheduling didn't work or because the Outlook bug caught you, I apologize for the Outlook bug, but this is going to contain everything that we talked about, so you won't have missed anything. Typically, I do these the week before the session starts, just as we did this year, and I try to keep them relatively short. In the past, we have had full sessions where we went through every step of the way and it just gets long and boring. So for those who are new, though, I want you to know that I know that starting out your first year on planting science can be a little bit overwhelming. We have an older site that was designed for scientists to use, so there are some aspects of it that might seem a little not instinctive. But I think most teachers that have worked with us will agree that, like, once you've gone through this once, it gets a whole lot easier. Everything does start to fall into place and make sense. And we are definitely here to help along the way. So, the purpose of this is mainly to bring everyone up to speed on some recent updates, to provide you with guidance as to where you go for your very next steps at this point. Um, during the sessions, we also, of course, open the floor for questions and answers, and I make breakout rooms available for any teacher and liaison pairs in attendance that want to, pop into one and have a conversation about what they are planning for the coming session. So we also, within our introductions, we always talk about our favorite cookies. That's been a tradition for a couple of years now. It's a little silly, but since you missed it, just so you know, the chocolate chips still reign supreme. I'm still a strong advocate for oatmeal raisin. I feel like it doesn't get enough love, but it is what it is. Anyway, so that's what you missed there. The updates from the home office are coming out of St. Louis still. We have not, our office has not moved. Our website has. I'll explain more about that in a second. But just for those who are new here, we are staff of the Botanical Society of America. So we are operating out of the offices in St. Louis at the Missouri Botanical Garden. It's a lovely place. Please come visit. Would love to show you around. It's a great, great garden to visit. But what's exciting for us this year in particular, and this session in particular, is this is our 20th anniversary. Planting Science began as just like a message board based conversation between in fall of 2005. One thing that happened this year that was super exciting for us, although it was kind of a bummer how we got there, because we are members of the Botanical Society of America's staff, we always go to the Botany Conference because we help with the coordination and all of that. The Botany Conference this past summer was in Palm Springs, California, which is a super cool town. If you've never been, I strongly encourage you to go. It's got a lot of great biodiversity there, but it's also very cool cultural and historical story there as well. So really worth seeing. But what happened on the very first day was that Dr. Lucille Lohman, who is the president, who is the head of the Missouri Botanical Garden, was slated to be the plenary speaker and kick the whole session off, the whole conference off. And unfortunately, she came down sick that day. It wasn't anything serious, so we're really grateful that she's fine. But because she had to step down, they approached us and said, since it's your 20th anniversary, do you want to get up and at least just talk about the program for a few minutes? And fortunately for us, Dr. Katrina Adams, who's in this picture here, this is Katrina. She had just done a presentation on our most recent rounds of research and what the program's like to a different conference. So she had the slides ready to go. She was already familiar with it, so she got up and gave the plenary. So that was a nice showcase for us for some of the good work that we've done over 20 years, all the students that we've been able to engage, all of that. So I really want to welcome all of you and thank you for being here as part of this sort of historic session this fall. We have seen a nice increase from our mentor pool from that exposure, which was great. So liaisons, if you're watching this, just be aware that we have a lot of new faces in the crowd and there may need to be a little bit of hand holding. Probably not a lot. What we ask mentors to do isn't super hard to figure out, but just be aware that that's part of the chemistry of this session to come. We also have some other celebratory updates in the pipeline. You'll see those as they come about. But, happy birthday, Planting Science. What has moved is our website server. We've been housed at the University of California in San Diego since about 2016 as part of their Hub Zero project. That's been a great relationship for us for the most part. We have not had any complaints really, but they have decided to sunset the Hub Zero program at UCSD. So that some of it I think is a funding decision. Some of it has to do with their internal projects and where they wanted to go. So what they had to do, of course, was look around for other organizations that offered similar services. And as it happens, Hub Zero actually began at Purdue, so this was kind of a nice little return home for us. So our site has now been moved to Indiana, which is fine. You know, we had a lovely conversation with them before it happened. We spent a lot of time this summer kind of testing things out, making sure that the transition was smooth. However, there was an update to some of our underlying programming, and so that's created some unexpected just things here and there. We are aware of a lot of them. I sent out an email this past just like yesterday, explaining all of our known issues. So you'd be aware of what things we already do know about. However, if you run into anything else that doesn't seem to match the literature or just doesn't seem to be working as you expected, please don't hesitate to let me know. I will make sure that NanoHub, our new provider, is aware of it and will get right on making sure that gets fixed. So that's that situation. Every session, we have a couple of surveys we send out. One of them goes out to our mentors and one goes out to our students. And based on that, we have a whole set of just reminders and tips of things that we hope that you'll keep in mind. So I want to talk about those. Some of these are just updates, like the groups are up. Forums are added. I had to do those on Monday because we were correcting an error, but those are now done. They should be in place. If for any reason you go to your group page and you don't see them there, let me know. I can take care of that fairly quickly. All of your settings should be correct now. And liaisons, you should all have your liaison settings in place. So if you go to your resources, you should be able to see liaison resources there. Mentor recruitment should take place about 1 to 2 weeks. Usually 2 weeks is best. 1 week is fine too, but you don't want to go too much earlier than that. And the reason for that is, number one, when you invite somebody and they have an invitation pending, it drops them to the bottom of the list. So that's to make sure that all of our mentors are kind of getting equal attention, which is great. However, it does knock them out for other people too. So that's part of it. And then the other thing is, having them sit there long term. They're doing this as a volunteer thing that they're doing on the side, even as they are teaching and doing research and all of that. So if you invite them too early, it kind of drops below their radar and they might not remember that you're there when the time comes. So hitting them in that 1 to 2 week window seems to be the sweet spot. 2 weeks gives you time to send out invitations, see who doesn't respond, cancel those and start again. So really encourage you to use that time frame and take it seriously. Finally, student projects have a deadline of November 30th. That is the end of the session. You can start any time between now and then, but we do ask, at least if STAR project consideration is important to you, that you plan to have them finished by that date. If it's not important to you that they be considered for STAR projects, you can go longer, but do let us know so that we can make sure your mentors are aware. Our mentors typically expect to be done by the 30th, so if you have to go longer, it's just good to make sure they're aware of what's going on. We do have some new resources that are going to be super helpful. One of them is this quick start checklist, and that can be found. Here under resources. Hold on. If you go to teacher resources or liaison resources, they're going to be in this top row. Okay, so this top row in both cases includes the manual. So that's a link to the book itself. I will say the manual is not designed to be read like in one sitting. It is not a narrative. It's not that engaging. It is set up as a Google Doc on purpose though, because that allows us to have lots of cross navigation links within it. So if you do want to print it out, you can. Just know that some of the functionality built into it is supposed to be that you can click on links to go different places and all of that. The quick start checklist is here, and if you click this, it'll prompt you to make a copy of it for yourself. So this is not something I'm going to see. If you do complete it. It is, of course, completely optional. It's meant to be a support. But if you make a copy, it's yours. Like, you don't have to turn it in later or anything. But the way this is set up is to give you easy access to the parts. First of all, to list in a fairly instinctive way the steps you need to be thinking about now at the beginning of the session, and then what you need to be thinking about before the students log in. Um, but also give you these easy, convenient links that take you to the chunks of the manual that talk about how to do that thing. So, for example, like say you want to connect with your assigned teacher. Okay, you can click this link, it'll open up the manual for you and turn right to the page. There it is. Okay, so it connects to your, this will talk to liaisons about how to connect with their teacher. There is a similar link in the teacher checklist that tells them how to talk to their liaison. A lot of the liaison and teacher manual is the same thing, just flipped, because both roles are group managers. They all have the same capabilities. They will list out, this is a task that typically falls to teachers. This is a task that typically falls to liaisons. But both can do all of those tasks. That includes uploading students. That includes adjusting who's in which project, adding mentors, recruiting mentors, all of that. So this will walk you through where those typically fall out, and you guys can decide between the two of you who wants to do what. But in order to facilitate that conversation, we did also create this document. And again, this is where the fact that it's a Google Doc works for us. If you click on this, it will prompt you to make a copy of this document right here. And the idea here is, as your liaison teachers, your liaison is there to help get you going and moderate the conversations as the session unfolds. So their role is to basically be the person that you can talk to. Then they will in turn talk to your mentors for you, kind of take that off your plate. That does not mean you're not allowed to talk to your mentors. You are certainly allowed to post your form yourself if that's what you prefer to do. You could also send emails to mentors if you'd like, those kinds of things. But the idea here is that you don't have to do that. Your liaison is there to help you make that all much more seamless. Your liaison is also going to be watching the feeds to make sure that mentors are responding regularly. If one mentor seems to be really taking a long time to respond, or students are logging in and they're not getting anything from them, they will step in and mentor those students until their mentor comes back, or sometimes even find a new mentor for them. So that way we make sure that kids don't log in and just have nobody talking to them. But beforehand, you do need to make sure you're all on the same page about some key things. And that's what this document is designed to facilitate. Just like the checklist, this is for you. It's a support, it's optional. I don't expect you to turn this into me. But what you do here is during your conversation, you might look at this together. This is where you talk about who's going to be doing the major tasks of setup. In part two, it talks about communication. And you're going to hear me hit communication really hard, and especially teachers. I want you to know I am a former teacher. I taught middle and high school. I totally know what your life is like. I know how hectic it is. I taught in urban charter school, so I really know how hectic things can be and how many extra duties you might be asked to do. So I just need you to understand, I say this with love, your student success in this program is going to be really, really hinging on how much communication you invest into talking to your liaison and mentors about what's going on in your classroom. That helps them understand what's happening. It also keeps you in touch with the program. So if you're not somebody who's not a big communicator, this would be the time to kind of work on that skill maybe, because they need to hear from you. So the communication plan is like, how do we do that best? Are you an email person? Would you rather have text messages, or would that feel like too much of an invasion of your privacy? We obviously want it to be comfortable for everybody. So texting, email, whatever you guys want to do, that's between the two of you. You can decide that. How do you want to handle classroom updates to mentors? These are typically posted to your group forum. Does the teacher want to do that themselves? Do you want the liaison to do that on your behalf? You guys just need to sort that out and decide how that's going to happen and how often you want your liaison to be checking in with you and vice versa. Emergencies may come up, like, I don't know, like wildfires, surprising now, are really, really becoming more of a problem in those parts of the country where that happens a lot. So if you have like a wildfire smoke day where your school is canceled, you need to know that that is something we need to know right away so our mentors are aware. Same with like snow days or even just anything else that might be going on. Make sure that you guys have a plan for who's going to communicate that and how. There are some really easy ways to do that that are built into the system. Those are all laid out in the manuals. The curriculum, teachers, we know that you have to try to fit this into stuff you're already doing. So we respect your right to make changes. We make recommendations, obviously, within our themes about the ways that you can come at this with students. But if the activities that we've offered you are activities you don't feel comfortable doing or you don't have the equipment for, we understand and you are welcome to make changes. The thing, though, is that, again, we need you to tell us what's going on because our mentors, especially our more experienced mentors, are going to be expecting the kids to either be doing or have done certain things. And if they're not doing that, we just need to make sure our mentors are on top of that. So they're not, talking past students and vice versa. The other thing to be aware of is that students use the word experiment for everything. So when they post to their mentor, there's like, we did our experiment today, blah, blah, blah. Well, the mentor often doesn't know, are you talking about like a whole group activity experiment that you did in the classroom, or are you talking about an inquiry experiment that you designed on your own? Because it's the inquiry experiment they design on their own or whatever exploration they're doing that they are in charge of, that the mentor's supposed to be supporting. And if the kids just pop on and say, we did our experiment, here's what happened, the mentor's very confused. So you can help solve that problem by just being really clear with your mentors. Here's what we're doing this week. This is what we're doing Monday. This is what the kids will be posting about. And then they'll know going in when they say experiment, they're talking about this and not something else. So just be really clear. Again, you're welcome to make changes. We completely understand that. If you want to skip whole activities, that's fine. Just make sure that we all know what's going on. That's all. And then finally, schedule. When do you expect the students to be picking research questions? How, what's your timeline? Because that way we'll know, mentors, we really need you logging in on Friday because the kids are going to post their research question then, and we need you to feedback right away so that they can take your feedback and get rolling on Monday. That kind of a thing. How many days are you giving them in class to work on this? How often do you think mentors should check in and post? Do you want them to be checking daily, every 2 to 3 days? What do you think is most appropriate? And is there anything that they should be aware of while you guys are gone? Mentor preferences usually comes down to, like, if you have been a planting science teacher in the past and there were mentors that were really great with your kids, if you want us to specifically invite those people, we will try. Doesn't mean they're available, but we will definitely take that into consideration and send an invitation to them. If you have students with needs like they're English language learners and they need somebody who can understand Spanish or they can understand, Farsi or whatever, we will do our best. We can't promise, but we will do our best to try to find mentors that fit those qualifications. And then finally, if there's certain things your kids are working on, like if your students are really working on their writing or they're not real strong readers, whatever, that's also good information for us to have because we can pass that on to mentors and have them curate their messages accordingly. And that's that. So each one of these things these boxes is a table. So you can, they just expand downward as you go. So feel free to write any notes in here that you want to. But again, this is just a guide and it's for you. I'm not going to see it. So you do work with it however makes sense to you. So that's some of the resources that we have available. There are other things out there, and I'll talk a little bit more about other places you can go for help in just a minute. But definitely do check those out. We also do send out surveys to our mentors and our students, and we really read them closely because they help us see pinch points that we can't see from the office, right? So these are coming from them. One of the things that mentors really get frustrated about is that the teachers seem to forget that they are volunteering. And that is something I want to make real clear. Our mentors are not paid to do this. They step up to do it out of the goodness of their hearts and because they are sincerely interested in helping students appreciate plants more and all of that. That helps them grow the field. It helps them it helps them actually practice bringing their science to street level and talking to people about it too. So that's good for them. So just remember that they are they're real people. They are really interested in being and engaging with your students. So what the pitfalls that we run into most often is teachers will change their schedule and not let the mentors know. So that's like, just imagine them showing up at your school and you go like, "Oh right, are you coming today? I forgot about that." Again, we all know, teachers, you guys have a lot on your plate. We understand, but we're just asking you to try to keep that in mind. The other thing that tends to happen a lot that we'd like to head off at the pass if we could is students will engage pretty well through the establishing a research question and designing their exploration, but then once they start to have their data, they just drop off and they're gone. And so we hear a lot about the beginning and the development, and then we never hear what happened. We never hear what the students thought about it. We never really hear if they learned anything from it. And that's just kind of a morale killer sometimes, because it just makes the mentors feel like they weren't, like they just don't get to ever hear the end of the story. So really encourage your students to send their data and their thoughts on their data after they collect it. That way, the mentor can read that and maybe even give some insight. That's actually the best time for mentors to be ringing in with their expertise, right? So please make sure your students are taking advantage of that. Please make sure your students log in and thank the mentor for their time because, again, they're volunteers. That's great for morale. And of course, as a teacher, again, like I said, hitting that communication. Please make sure at least weekly you're shooting your liaison an email and explaining what's going on in your classroom. And then this poster here, we have this as a PDF that you can download, and I'll be making that available here shortly. Please feel free to print it off and put it in your classroom if you think that would be helpful. If you have another regimen that might works for you, that's fine. But these 4 steps are so key to making sure that this conversation goes well between students and mentors, because students just don't instinctively know how to talk to adults a lot of the time, especially if they, in the current generation where a lot of it is texting and that sort of thing. This really helps them think through how you have a professional conversation with somebody. So the main thing is, read your mentor's last post carefully. Whatever your mentor has posted, make sure they read it carefully. It is, I do want to caveat that most of our mentors are pretty mindful about trying to write at the student's level. We have a couple, we work with them a lot, that aren't good at that. So please know that we understand that there's a reading rigor that can come into play there. If the mentor's post is too long or too involved, encourage them to skim. We understand that, but just the thing they should probably be skimming for more than anything goes to the second point, which is respond to the questions that your mentor is asking you. So even if they can't necessarily understand all of the explanation that maybe their mentor posted, at least look for questions and make sure you're answering those questions, because the single biggest morale killer for our mentors is when they put a lot of thought into responding to students and giving them some good advice or some thoughts that they have on it, and then they ask a question, the student's next comment is just a report about what's going on, and they completely ignore the questions. The mentor feels like the students really don't care that they posted anything. So any questions mentors ask, please just make sure students pay attention to that and reply to them. They don't have to post a long response, just a quick acknowledgement that there was a question and the best answer they can give. Then, by all means, provide an update, report in, tell us what's going on and what they've done that day. And then it's always helpful for them to give the mentor something to do. So that is, we could really use your thoughts on this. Could you help us understand this concept? Do you have any updates on what's going on in your world? And I think this is really key. In the teacher guide at the back, there is a list of prompts that we encourage teachers to consider giving their students to ask their mentor about their work, even beyond the experiment that the students are working on. So say, asking them how they decided to become a scientist, asking them if anything funny has happened in their lab, just encouraging the scientists to share some sort of real world dialogue that can help students appreciate them as real people. We have had some really amazing conversations between students and scientists. It started with them just admitting that they follow a certain basketball team. And we consider that to be a valuable thing. They need to see that scientists are like them, that they watch Marvel movies, that they have pets, things like that. So please don't discourage your students from posting questions like that. It is obviously there's a limit on how invasive student questions should be, but mentors also know they're not required to answer things that they're not comfortable answering either. So again, definitely reference those prompts. Those are really helpful for helping kids kind of break through the I should only talk about my experiment barrier there. And of course, if you have questions about this, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm happy to talk through it with you. In your forum, you will find, let's see, I'll go here to my dashboard so you can see how I get there. When you go to your groups are going to be in the My Groups box here. So I'll click on Ms. Harrow's class here, just as an example. And I'm going to click on the forum. So it's right about here in this side menu. And teachers and liaisons will be able to see this top part that says Managers Forum. Your mentors can't see this. There's nothing really hidden in there. And just as a caveat, if you create a category here and start talking about your mentors, this will also email out to your mentors. So don't use this for private conversations. That's not a good idea. But anyway, your helpful links are here. You'll see that there are two things under here. One of them is the scavenger hunt. One of them is the student perceptions of scientists survey. So, and if you click on these, it gives you a description of what they are and links for how to use them. The scavenger hunt we developed this as part of our F2 this recently. Clicking that link will make a copy of this for you. So we will not see your students' responses to this. We don't want to see your students' responses to this. You will be able to see, though, because it does ask for their email, you'll be able to see if the student who did it and who didn't. That's the only reason why that's in there. It does prompt them to put in their username. That helps you see that they know what their username is. That's often a trip up. They think it's their own name. They think it's their first name. They think it might be their school email address. So asking them to put your username in here will help ensure that you know who's using PS blah 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 blah, whatever their actual username is. And it can help you head off some misunderstandings at the pass. It then walks them through their dashboard and all the major things they need to find there. It shows them how to get to their project page and what the different parts of the project page do. And then it encourages them to personalize their project page with a photo and a name. That part, students should kind of do with their team. So make sure that you kind of explain to them that if they were to all do it separately, each subsequent student will overwrite the previous student's contributions in that part. So if they're putting in like a picture, they're going to replace the picture that someone else put in there. So it's a good idea to have them do that together and have one person do the uploading. Just a warning. But again, this is going to be your document. So if you want to look through it all and make changes, delete questions, add things, totally up to you. This is just, again, a tool that's designed to be a support for you. And then what are scientists like? We really would love you to do this one. This one is optional, but it is super, super helpful, both to us and I think to students. As part of our end of the session survey, we asked students whether their scientist mentor surprised them in any way. And what we got early on was that a lot of students said they didn't know, like they weren't sure because they hadn't really given a lot of thought to what they thought a scientist was like beforehand. So by creating this was actually created as part of one of our research projects. It's not used for research now, it's more just a temperature read, but we do not ask for any student identifying information aside from who their teacher is. And the only reason why we even ask that is because a lot of our teachers have expressed an interest in seeing what their kids put in. So having them fill this part out allows us to give you a list of your students' responses. But it's a very simple format. It's going to ask them to identify 3 adjectives or short phrases that describe what they think scientists are like as people. It's going to ask them to identify 3 verbs or short phrases to describe the things that they think scientists do. It's going to ask them if they know a scientist, just to see how many kids can say already going in that they do know one. And then it's also going to ask them to identify, like when you think of a scientist, when you were answering those previous questions, who were you thinking about? Were you thinking about a specific scientist or whatever? And then we take that information and we put it into these word clouds. So if you come here under your resources, down at the very bottom is student perceptions word cloud. I'm still updating the ones from the previous calendar year. So 2025 isn't in here yet. But spring 2025 rather. But we do have fall of 2024, spring of 2024, and fall of 2023. And we have aggregated all of these together into kind of an overall one as well. So you can kind of take your students' responses if you want, and you can put them into your own word cloud and then compare that to the word cloud created by all of the students that have completed it to date, which is kind of fun. This one is also neat. I mean, obviously, showcasing how few students can think of a scientist is kind of a big that's a big deal. The fact that so many responded with none. But the other thing about the way this is set up in wordart.com, which by the way I recommend completely, is such a great program and it's free. I just love it. But you can click on any of these names. So, like if your student doesn't know who Jane Goodall is, you can click on that name and it'll take them to her Wikipedia page so you can read more about her. So, it's a fun activity that you can make available to students. I recommend that if you're going to, if you're going to do this, again, please do. But if you choose to do it, I would do it before you even tell them they're going to be interacting with a scientist. I would make this how you introduce the idea to them. So that way they're filling it out completely cold. And you can encourage them. We don't show our mentors what their team responded because we don't know which kid is which. Okay. So they will see like the overall of everybody for that session. But it is an anonymous survey. Okay, so if you have questions about any of this or anything else, no matter how basic you think it is, please don't hesitate to reach out for help. First of all, that's what I'm for. So I really don't want you stuck on anything, even if it seems like you should be able to figure it out. I am here for you. So, of course, the manuals are there up under your resources in the top menu. The quick start checklists are also there, and the investigation the materials, so all of the curriculum and all of that. One bit of clarification I've gotten a lot of confusion from in the past. If you are brand new to us this session and you got the Inquiring with Plants book, that's just a nice book to read that talks about ways that you can build inquiry into plant investigations. That's not your curriculum. Okay, that's just for you as a reference. It's just a nice thing we try to send out because it's a good book. But if you need your like lesson plans, if you're looking for other supports, you're going to find them under investigation theme materials on the website. If you are looking for tutorials, if you are a video person, you can come to our YouTube channel and we have these site tutorials right here. And they walk you through a lot of the major chunks of what to do to get prepared. It's a pretty good set of tutorials, but I will warn you, it's me, so you can kind of get a vibe from this video about how talented I am at making these. But that just give you an idea of where you can go to actually watch it done. The only caveat I will say is that we've had a couple of minor tweaks to the website since then, so there may be a couple of things that look a little different, not a lot. They're still mostly relevant. I haven't seen anything that makes me feel like I need to redo them all. But let me know if you have any questions about those. Of course, you can always email me and you can text me at this number. You can call that number too, but you're less likely to get me by a phone call, mainly because I keep my phone on do not disturb during the workday anyway. But text message also rings my watch and on my desktop, everything. So I get text messages really fast. I have to look at my phone to see the phone call. So just let me know if you're trying to reach me and it's something really timely. Texting is advised. Please do that. And finally, if you are just really stuck and you want me to walk you through something, I am happy to do that too. Come here to need help. And then down here to the bottom, takes a second to load, but we have a booking calendar here. And I have some 30-minute time slots all blocked out. You can just select one and I will get right back to you with a Zoom link and we will meet and we'll talk through whatever you need. If none of these times work, shoot me an email. We'll work out a different time. These are just the times I set aside. I have other times I'm willing to work with you, and I do not mind going into the evening or meeting on weekends if we absolutely have to. Okay. I am here for that. And I will even, upload your students for you, whatever you need. We want to just make sure you're moving forward. So, and that is it. That is the end of our meet and greet session. At this point during the session, I open the floor to questions and answers. Of course, use any of the things we just talked about to submit questions as needed. If if you don't have access to meeting software, please don't hesitate to let me know, and I'll happily set up a Zoom for you and your liaison to meet if that's what something that you want to do. But that's it. We hope you have a great session. Again, communicate, 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 and please let us know how we can help you. Thank you so much for being a part of our 20th anniversary fall session. Have a great day.